Don't do it. Don't. I see you. You're about to skip to the end of the video to see who wins. Of course you can do that, but this iPhone 17 series battery test isn't quite as simple as any other battery test because you might have a different one. So here's the setup. All 4 new iPhones, the 17, the Air, the Pro, and the Pro Max. I want to see which one lasts the longest, or at least how they compare relative to each other. But for context, I'm also going to bring in last year's 16 Pro Max to see how the new kids fare against the best of last year. Bring in the timer phone. Boom, let's go. All right, ground rules. All phones are brand spanking new. I mean, I've used them for maybe a few days each, including the Pro Max. I bought a new one so that it had 100% of its battery health. They all do. I also made this video the day after iOS 26 came out for all devices. So last year's 16 Pro Max is running the public proper full iOS 26, not a beta version. All background apps closed, fresh restarts, matching the brightness, the usual things. What has changed for this video though is all phones have an eSIM enabled. And as I complete each rotation of apps, so I've got, YouTube, a couple of games, Instagram, TikTok, shooting 4K video with a camera. After I complete one rotation, I'll then turn off Wi-Fi and then do the same again on mobile. So it will go between Wi-Fi and mobile to give us slightly more real-world results. And also help the iPhone Air, which of course uses Apple's new C1X modem, prioritizing efficiency, to last that little bit longer. I also can't believe that this is the first iPhone battery video I've ever made where all the phones have ProMotion. Every time I make one of these, including the base models, people in the comments say, well, if they were all 60 Hz, it would last longer, but obviously that's not how we use our phones. So all phones have the 1 to 120 Hz refresh rate. While I have you though, shall we see how hot these phones have got? And if I switch to my thermal imaging camera after 30 minutes of playing War Thunder, you can see on the iPhone Air all the heat is around that new plateau area because of course the chip is at the top of the phone. You can see the vapor chamber coolers of the Pro and the Pro Max drawing some of that power down, allowing it to dissipate through the body. So what I found is that the iPhone Air heats up the fastest under demanding use cases like playing games, but after about 10 minutes it's the iPhone 17 that takes the lead in terms of being the hottest. But for more performance, check out my full reviews. So I'm going to let this run while I talk to you about the different models of these iPhones. This is what I mentioned at the beginning of the video, because if you live in the US, I think Canada, Mexico, Japan, maybe some of the Middle East, if where you live gets the eSIM only version of these new iPhones, then you're going to get a longer battery life. Here in the UK, in Europe, and basically the rest of the world, we still have physical SIM card slots as well as eSIM support, which until now has been like, yay, we get extra options for connectivity. But now with the 17 series, it's more like, oh no, because Apple's actually put in a bigger battery to those eSIM models. So I have the UK physical SIM version of these phones. Although, as I say, the iPhone Air is eSIM only, so that will remain the same globally. But Apple says if you have an eSIM only version of one of these new iPhones, you'll get an extra 2 hours of battery, at least in their local video playback test. In reality, it'd probably be a little bit less than that. All right, jumping ahead a little bit there, and we're starting to see the Air and the 17 in slightly dangerous territory. What's interesting though is that the 17 is bigger than last year's 16. It's 6.3 inches, up from 6.1. So they've been able to put a bigger battery in there, and you can also see I have put the specs and also the estimated battery size below each phone. But then, yep, iPhone Air kicks the bucket. First one to die at 6 hours, 43 minutes, leaving the iPhone 17, which is closest behind, still on 6%. So yeah, the cheaper, smaller iPhone 17 will last a little bit longer. How much longer, you ask? About 10 minutes, it turns out, at least while playing this game. Obviously, there's always going to be some variables based on what app is running, but that's why I rotate through them every 30 minutes to keep it as fair as possible. So the 17 does beat the Air, but not by an awful lot. But this is where things get crazy. I would have put money on the 17 Pro going next, but no, it's last year's 16 Pro Max. The newer, smaller 17 Pro beats last year's flagship Pro Max. I mean, it only has 2% left and it's only good for, well, a few extra minutes, but it beats it. That is an incredible uptick. I mean, given how much better the 16 Pro Max battery was over the 16 Pro, the fact the 17 Pro beats it is incredible. But with the 17 Pro out for the count, that obviously means the 17 Pro Max is our winner, to the surprise of no one. And it still has a good 9% of its battery left. I know what you're about to say, but Mr. Who's the Boss's video, or SuperSaf, or Marquez, that went on for 12 hours. Every battery test will be different, because they use different apps, different settings, they probably won't use eSIMs in their test as well. And also, it's more about the relative performance between the phones under that same test, rather than how it compares to other people's batteries. So in last place, as we all predicted really, the iPhone Air. It did pretty well though, it really wasn't far behind the 17. It will get you through a full day, and if you need a top up, then just pop on one of these $100 MagSafe chargers. Then we have the iPhone 17, which in my book is the MVP of all iPhones this year. 256 gigs of storage as standard, 120Hz ProMotion, and the battery is solid, if not amazing. But the base 17 is by far the best value iPhone. But then, last year's 16 Pro Max. As I say, I bought this new so it would have 100% battery health. Also, all iPhones running iOS 26 get Apple's new adaptive power saving feature. So over time, it'll sort of learn your patterns and usage and improve battery, but that's kind of hard to test. So second place, of course, goes to the very bright orange 17 Pro. But considering how last year's 16 Pro and, well, all previous Pros were a little bit lacking in the battery department, this is a big upgrade for the smaller Pro. But of course, the people's champion is the 17 Pro Max, and when my 17 Pro died, this still had about 9 or 10% left in the tank, so probably good for an extra hour or two of everyday use. I make these videos not as like a comprehensive this is how long your battery will last, but just to give you an idea of what to expect. And as I say, if you have an eSIM only version of the 17, the Pro or the Pro Max, then it will last longer than my test here. But hats off to Apple. The new 17 Pro and Pro Max not only last a good deal longer than their predecessors, but they're also significantly faster, as I talk about in my full review, and they also run cooler. That's a hat trick of pretty significant upgrades. But what do you make of the new iPhones? Have you ordered one? Are you tempted or not really interested this year? Let me know in the comments below. If you've got any questions, any feedback, also drop a comment, and I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chat. Thanks for watching. And bonus points if you didn't skip right to the end.